And I said, I've always loved these old trucker songs. It'd be cool to do like Junior Brown, who was out at the time. Do Junior Brown kind of stuff, but a little more rock and roll. And he said, we'd love to film you doing that. Like, kind of like reality shows were new, And before the Kardashians killed it. And so anyway.
So you set the stage for the Kardashians' success, is what you're saying?
I'm pretty much responsible for the Kardashians, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
When
I think Kardashians, I also think Jason McCoy.
As you do.
Hey, this is On The Porch with Front Porch Music, hosted by me, Jenna.
And Logan.
We are so pumped to share another great conversation with you today.
Yeah, today we talked to just a guy with a guitar. You might have heard of him. His name's Jason McCoy. No big deal. He's only been nominated for 19 CCMA awards, 5 Juno awards, and he won Global Artist of the Year in 2006 at the CMAs.
Never heard of him.
Jason who? McCoy. Also of the Roadhammers, also huge successful band. We had a really great conversation with him. He's a really down-to-earth guy, and
he knows a lot.
He does know a lot.
Business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and he's also just a nice guy.
Totally.
And like, your mother wouldn't even say hi to him.
I know.
Wanda.
Come on.
You'll hear more about that in the episode. But yeah, so before we get to the episode, if you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the show. And the hardest way to support the show would be crawling through the window to listen to us live.
What?
I don't know. So let's get right to it. Here's the episode.
Jason McCoy, thank you so much for joining us on the porch today.
Well, thank you for having me on the porch. This is awesome.
It's virtual, but it's
a virtual
front porch.
That's all right. Hey, it's a porch.
Yeah.
We have our coffee. We're ready to go.
Exactly. Do you have lots of memories listening to music on the front porch in the morning on Sundays with your coffee or growing up?
No, my dad wouldn't allow the sitting around kind of thing. He was a go and let's get out of the house. We got some chores to do, but he always have a radio on. So
there you go.
We have actually my first experiences with country music were I grew up. I was born in Ontario, but we moved out near Camrose when I was a little kid on a farm, and we had a radio on top of the refrigerator, and so we'd listen to CFCW was the station. It was a repeater station from their Edmonton feed. Mm-hmm. And we listened to, country music in the late 70s and the Hog and Feed Report every 15 minutes. And there you go. So it was, that was how I kind of grew up. And then moving back to Ontario when I was 10, actually the station we'd get in the clearest was out of Hamilton, and I was in Barrie. And so many a time, we'd be working out in the shop with my dad, and we'd be listening to CHAM, 820, and it was AM, and you'd hear it. At certain times, like in the evening, it would come in really clear, like clearer than any. The only other station we had was CFGM out of Toronto. That was, I think it was an AM2 or maybe an FM, I'm not sure, but it only came in when it wanted to. So it was the Hamilton station we listened to. And then we finally got our own country station up here as well, CKRM. And ironically enough, I now work for what that station was at one time. It's now a Bell station, and I do mornings on Pure Country 106 out of Aurelia. So kind of interesting. I've had a good relationship with radio over the years.
I was gonna say that's a really interesting turnaround. Like you started with radio, getting some influences from radio in Barrie, and then eventually working there.
Yeah, and in the mornings too, which is awesome.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that. So you're obviously a musician, and musicians famously don't do mornings. Do evenings and
your
late
schedule's
nights.
At night, yeah.
So how does that morning, and you're still touring too and doing shows, and how does that work in terms of your sleep schedule? Like, do you sleep?
I used to sleep. I used to be on that night owl schedule, but not great. Like I never really sleep great, but I need it. I'm not saying I don't need sleep and I'm just up and I'm jovial. Not at all. I'm just a grump and I'm always tired. But I always, because of back to my dad getting up early and always wanting to do stuff, and our family was always, raking leaves or feeding cows or whatever it was, stuff. And so that led to always thinking that if you didn't get out of bed early, you're wasting the day. So I always had this thing in my mind of I'd like to get up early. And an interesting thing, I always said to my wife, I said, if I had a job that forced me to get out of bed early, that would be my dream. I'd really like that because I like the idea of getting up early. Well, careful what you wish.
And now you're up very early.
Yeah, I went to work for a radio station in Kitchener for a month, and I did middays, and it was kind of an audition to see. They were looking for somebody in mornings, and so I did this little audition, and it didn't work out. They offered me a job, but I couldn't move there, and so I was really kind of bummed out because I always flirted with the idea of getting on radio. And then my wife's a nurse, and we came home, and she only works casual too, so her going into the hospital is fairly infrequent. And just by chance, I was talking to her that day, and I said, I'm really bummed out. It's too bad that I can't get a job at what was then Kicks, which is now Pure Country, because Jack, who's on the mornings, has said he's been there forever, and he's not going to retire, so I don't know what to do. Oh, well, should have taken that job in Kitchener maybe, So she goes into work that night, and we knew the station owner, Paul, and he had come into Paul came into the he's a family friend for years, He came into the ER and had a little issue there, and he had a snake bite of all things, I think. So anyway, he comes in, he's telling, "Oh, hey, Treen, hey, Paul," and then he says, "Hey, has Jason ever thought about getting into radio?" And she goes, "Well, yeah." And well, Jack's looking to retire, and we were thinking of calling him. So that led to me being there. So it just all worked out incredibly, and it's been a fun job ever since. But back to the getting up early, a long way to get longer. It's fun. It's very tiring, but it's a great way to stay connected to the community, and I learned so much. It's just been great.
Yeah, radio's a lot of fun. That's where I got my start as well, and currently working in radio back again in the Barrie area, not for the competition.
Yeah. You're the other guy.
Yeah.
I actually remember when you were on, because I grew up in Kitchener since I was like 12 years old. So it was Kicks 106.7, and now I think it's just Country 106.7 now. I remember I was like, Jason McCoy has a feature in Kitchener. What the heck? Yeah. And I think there's a countdown you did for a while too, right?
Yeah, when we talk about country in Ontario, Hamilton's long been known as a country town. A lot of great musicians out of there, but the true hotbed for country music talent is actually Kitchener-Waterloo. I mean, you've had the recording studios there. Rick Hutt was producing all that stuff with Bev Mahood and Jamie Warren, Thomas Wade for years, and had so many hits on the radio. Still very, very busy. But then that gave birth to Jason Barrie, who played on a lot of those sessions with Rick Hutt and played for Jamie Warren, myself, all these artists. Him starting his studio down that way. Now he's out east, but you've got Shane and Stacey Gouze, Western Swing Authority, and Paul Chapman, and all these artists who are not just the recording artists, but the musicians behind it, like the true studio the musical surgeons of the whole thing. So there's something in the water down there to that end, and it's a great place for country.
I didn't drink that water, unfortunately. No talent. That's why I'm.
I didn't either. The berry. I'm not allowed.
Yeah, you're drinking that berry water.
Drinking the berry coffee.
So you grew up born raised in the Barrie area, and then you guys went out west to Camrose.
Yeah,
right.
Bashaw.
And then what took you guys out west? What was it? The farm life?
Yeah, actually, it really was. My dad grew up on a farm, then he got into banking world here in Ontario, and he kind of got burned out on it. And so they bought a farm out there in 75. No, before that's when we came back, 76, 77. They bought a farm out there in 72, 73, something like that. And my dad got into farm life, and we had a couple of quarter sections. So he had cattle and chickens and cash crop and all that stuff, So I remember going out in the mornings with him, and the old days we had a soup can on top of the mini tractors, Minneapolis Moline, and you'd put a soup can on the exhaust to keep the rain out, And I always liked it because I was just a little guy, but my job in the morning was to go out, and even when it was frosty, I got to fire up the tractor, and then see how far up you could shoot the soup can, It was fun. But, so my first memories are of farm life, and then my dad got he was in the bank one day, and I guess doing some stuff for the farm, and he heard a familiar voice, and the guy was his old work buddy from Ontario. He said, "Hey, Jim, I'm looking for a loans officer out here. Would you be interested in coming in and working a few days a week?" So he's like, "Oh," so he's back in the bank and farming, and it was a good way to grow up. My dad, he was into small planes, and so he had a plane on the farm. He had an airstrip, and there you go.
And then what brought you guys back to Ontario a few years later?
It was funny because he and my mom thought we should be around family and all that because everybody was so far removed. I remember my relatives coming out to visit us, and that was always a big event, coming out to Alberta, and they felt we needed to be raised around the family. And then my dad passed a couple of years ago, and I remember asking him, I said, "Do you ever regret leaving Alberta?" He goes, "Oh yeah, every day." He goes, I go, "Why?" I didn't know that's why they moved back, right? And I said, "Oh, because I was thinking of moving to Alberta at some time, and because I just really like it out there, but all our family's here, so I like it everywhere. I mean, where we are in Ontario, we're on a farm, and I'm just down the road from my mom, so I'm over here today doing some work for her, and I'm able to do that and zip home, and it's nice being close."
So you grew up living obviously the country lifestyle. When did music become part of a career path for you?
Well, I played guitar since I was 10 or 11. I mean, my dad listened to all the guys on the radio, and he liked those Johnny Cash guys, and I was like, if he likes them, I guess I like them too. My one sister listened to Donny Osmond, the other one listened to Barry Manilow, and I was like, so I guess country it is.
Yeah, of the three options, that's the one.
Yeah, my dad played a little bit of guitar, so I learned a little bit too, and then I just forgot to quit. My uncle played bass guitar, Barry Brooks, and he saw an ad in the paper for a local band looking for a guitar player, and I was just started to drive. I was about 15, 16, and I was 15 because my dad drove me to the first audition, and it was called 3/4 Country, Cliff Legault, and they've been all over the place up here. And so I started playing for them, and then that led to a road gig. I went to work at Molson's in Barrie when they were still there, and after just in between my senior year, and then I saw an ad for a touring guitar player, must be able to leave soon and all that. So I went down to Toronto and auditioned, and I think that was on a Friday, and on Monday we left for Calgary, and I was...
Oh, wow.
18, just turned 17, 18. And
what did your parents say to that? "Hey, I'm packing up. I gotta go to Alberta."
They were supportive because they like country music, and I'd been playing in clubs around here in the Legions. I had to get notes to get in. I was too young and stuff, but I was writing songs. I recorded some stuff when I was 16 as well in Nashville with Ray Griff, and that was years before I started touring. A couple of years before I started touring, but so I had a career in mind. I was writing songs since I was 12, but I just didn't know how to get out there and play, right? So anyway, I went on the road, and then that led to recording a bit more with some people I met, and that led to hooking up with a guy named Ed Harris at MCA Records, and he wasn't able to sign me, and Warner Brothers had Paul Brandt at the time and Chris Cummings and people like that. So those were my contemporaries, and Universal MCA were looking for a male artist, right? Canadian. And I had a record out, and we made a deal that if they'd put it out to radio, but they'd kind of license it. And if it did well, maybe we'd look at another record. So I did that. A couple of songs got into the top 20, and then that led to sending me to Nashville to record the Playing for Keeps record, which had Dixieland on it, and that was it. So that kind of locked it all in.
Just fell into place somehow. Obviously,
well, there was a lot of miles in between there, but it was I was talking to my wife, and I've mentioned this a few times. Like, we lived in Nashville for years, sold our place just before the pandemic here, but it was like not a big thing to go play Oshawa on a Saturday night and then drive to Nashville Sunday and write with people on Monday, Tuesday, and then drive back Wednesday and play another weekend of shows in wherever, you name it.
Exhausting.
Yeah, but you're young and you got the energy and any opportunity, and now it's a little different, but it's, I was very lucky. This is before, internet, social media. It was before CMT, man. Like, we had, in Canada, we had the NCN, the New Country Network. And like, I remember beginning of videos. I mean, George Strait, Baby's Gotten Good at Goodbyes. That was one of the first videos I ever saw, you know, like, and stuff like that. It was just Reba McEntire, you know, like back in the big hair days, right? So
oh yeah, when her hair was the size of the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta tell you, yeah, absolutely. She looked like a Play-Doh fuzzy pumper or a pencil troll or something. It was pretty awesome. But I was so lucky because I had the opportunity to get out and play in an era that, I've had all these bygone eras that I was actually able to be part of. And one of them was when I started touring without recording. We were just playing. I got to learn guitar because we would play 6 nights a week with a Saturday matinee, and you'd go to a club and you'd play that all week, and it would be pretty packed, like all week long. It was just a thing that was going on there in the 80s, and it left in the 90s. Like, it just started to go away, and I got to play for 4 or 5 hours a night, and that is like, you can't pay and get paid, but you can't pay for that kind of experience. You know what I mean? And interacting with the crowd, even though I wasn't leading the band, I had a front row seat to see what worked and what didn't. You know, don't play this song. Nobody wants to hear that. You know, like, that helped. And then in the recording process, I learned on 2-inch tape, like how to record with a tape reel to reel machine, you know, and then when you're doing things in Pro Tools and digitally now, I understand why. I understand the gain structure and things like that I never would have learned otherwise, I just wouldn't understand. And then on top of that, when it came to videos, we used to make videos on what was it? 24 frames is like a film, like we did film, and
like
then
massive, yeah.
And you have to go back down to the recording, the video editing place, and listen and watch a screening and make your notes, and like, it's totally different. And there also wasn't social media, which was a plus and a minus, because now things like this, we would have had to arrange a time, go in, and, you know, I would have actually had to have a shower, you know, forget that. And then
us too.
You know, I couldn't be at my mom's house. And but social media, we didn't have the outlets to get everything across. So you needed a major label, you needed CMT, you needed these sorts of things. I was lucky there wasn't that much traffic, so I got in there. But it seems like there's a lot of traffic now, so there's a lot of noise. It's hard to rise above that noise. But there's better opportunities to find your tribe. Like, if you're Coulter Wall, he doesn't get played on the radio, but he's got tons of streams and his shows sell out because people are able to find him. You're on Spotify and you know, I listen to Coulter Wall, I listen to Core Blunt, you've got that's your thing, and you're going to find them. I'm into line dancing. I'll find that, you know, you're into prog rock or whatever it is. I think the opportunities are so much better now, but it's just a different arena. There's a whole pile of arenas out there.
It's weird. It's like social media has been great to, you know, get people to connect, like you said, to find your tribe, to find like the subgenres that you love. But it's also like so hard to make any kind of moves and make any kind of splash, like to have people find you. Just because there is so much noise. On this topic of social media, what is your relationship with social media right now? Like, is it something that you've seen, you know, add value to like the industry or into your career, or it can be a complicated topic?
Well, sometimes I always pull myself back because I think, well, I shouldn't really talk about certain things in just an opinion, right? But I have lived through a few cycles and I've seen a few things, so not that I'm telling people what's up. I don't really know, but I do know that when we were in Nashville with our first deal with the Hammers in 04, 05, the big thing was MySpace. And it was new, and this is the most important thing in your career, is you need to make stupid videos, interviews, post everything you can. And we did that, and you got a mailing list to make sure you do email blasts once a week. And it was even before the legislation of unsubscribe buttons for email lists. I remember when that came in, I was like, what? We can't just blast emails? You know, like we saw a lot of evolution, right? But MySpace was the thing, and we spent countless hours, like just unimaginable amount of effort populating MySpace, and then it was gone. I was like, well, what's this Facebook thing?
Yeah.
Oh, Facebook's the most important thing. You got to spend so much time. And then, so we did all that. And then I'd see bands like, I don't remember of the day, our contemporaries, but a modern day equivalent would be Chris Stapleton. Like if you look at his pie of energy, I don't think too much is on social media,
No.
Whereas other artists, it's just like, oh my God, like I don't need to know what you're eating for breakfast. Okay, you got your dog a new coat. That's great. Like it's just, and that's just me. There's a generation that craves that and wants that. But Chris Stapleton just stays silent until he has something to say. And then when he says it, everybody listens. And I'm not that guy. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that it's different for every artist. And just watch where you put your energy, because you're not the client. Instagram's the client.
No.
You're building their business.
You have to be the artist first, too.
If you use it to build your business, great. But if you're just trying to get likes and numbers, you're chasing your tail. And I've seen it. I've done it twice. And I haven't posted. Well, we went on holidays a couple of weeks ago. I haven't posted since. And I will. I get into things where I'm like, hey, chopping wood, or check this out, or we're shooting a gun or something, blowing something up, and it's fun. Maple syrup was the last thing we posted. And it's more because I got friends in the business who, post something about maple syrup. So I'll tag them and go, hey, this is how we did it, or whatever. I don't know. But if you want to promote a single or something like that, it's great. So it's double-edged sword for me, for sure.
It is interesting too. We get to talk to some young artists who want to be all over social media, and they have all these questions, and they're consumed with putting social media into their schedules too. And TikTok is insane, and nobody knows how to work TikTok. You either get lucky and hit the algorithm, or you don't. But everyone spends so much time doing it anyways.
Yep, I've tried to time it.
Have you? Did it work?
I've tried to time it with filters and cool stuff. And my niece got a whole pile of action on this one filter. I'm like, I'm going to do it too, and it gets 3 likes. I'm like, delete. Look like an idiot.
Yeah, how does that even work?
So depressing.
And then I posted a little thing on TikTok of these geese crossing the road in Barrie, and it got 50,000 or 100,000 likes. It's fun. It's an anomaly. TikTok's going to be gone. Twitter's evolved now with Elon Musk. It all, stereotype, or what do you call those things they used to sell in the 1800s? The photos that you look up to. Somebody made a lot of money off selling those old photo things.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the cutting edge technology, and everybody's like, yeah, our business has to have an advertising thing, and then it's gone. And then
it's just the same pig, different lipstick.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good way of saying it. But it's fun. I just like everybody else, can't sleep. So 3 a.m. it's like, oh, TikTok. TikTok finds your thing that you like. So whatever you stop and pause on the most, those things come up. And I always like those, not life hacks, but specialized tools and weird things, how they do stuff. And I find myself on all these little home projects that you can start and stuff. I've got a whole bunch of stuff started, but do solar pool heaters and all that kind of stuff. And it's just people doing things in different ways you'd never think of, right? How would you find that before? You'd have to go somewhere and see somebody doing it, or you'd have to know somebody who knew how to do it. But it's a fantastic tool to find those things. And kittens and puppies, of course.
Exactly. I think the moral of that story is you can't throw everything into social media. You have to, if you're not approaching it to have fun, foremost, you're not going to get, you can't expect a huge return from social media probably, right? Especially like we're saying, TikTok is a hit or miss. So you have to be careful, toe the line with the relationship with something like social media, because it can be all consuming too.
I got a 12-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl, and you see their relationships to social media, and hers is more intense. It's still not as bad as most 15-year-old girls, I don't think, but you can be bullied, or you can be hyper concerned about people following you and all that kind of stuff. And it's depressing. And you're talking about kids' mental illness on the rise. And I think a lot of that's tied to social media. Shut the phone off, man. Shut the phone off. Take the dog for a walk. Feel like $1 million. And, but if you had fun at a soccer game and somebody's got a really cool video of you getting a great goal and your mom posts that, that's awesome. But that's just, or doing something stupid. It's fun, but it is what it is. It's gone as soon as you post it. Just leave it. It doesn't matter who likes it or not. It doesn't matter.
It's true. No, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Well, this seems like a great time for us to take a quick little break, and we'll be right back after this.
All right.
And we're back.
Right. Thanks, Jason. We've been chatting a little bit about social media, growing up on the farm. You went to Alberta, you came back to Ontario. Somehow you had a little bit of a solo career going, and then you and two buddies have the Roadhammers. How did you meet your band? They're both from Alberta, are they not?
Yeah, so it was wasn't a little bit of a solo career. I came off my second.
I was gonna say, it was a pretty big solo career, Jenna.
A little bit.
How disrespectful.
Just a little bit.
No, I don't
might
mean
I say
that.
Also, might I say you were part of my childhood?
I was dabbling in the arts, and no, I don't mean that. What I mean is I'd done a lot of work with CMT, and I was just coming off second Male Artist of the Year win, but I did a lot of work with CMT, and I was talking to Ted Ellis, who was the head of CMT at the time in Canada, and I was saying, man, I don't know what to do, because I was coming off Sins, Lies, and Angels album, and country music, as it always has ever done and continues to do, gets really pop and really traditional, and there always comes these divides where there's this no man's land, and I didn't know which way to jump, and it was kind of that George Dukas, Dwight Yoakam thing, or Shania Twain. It was like, which way was I going to go? And so I said to Ted, I said, I'd like to kind of park over in the side and maybe just do like a tribute record of some degree, even a Traveling Wilburys kind of thing. That was the thing at the time, Basically, I went from it being a tribute record to let's put together a band. So Chris was in my band already, solo. And then my drummer, Scott, he was going to be in this Roadhammers thing. We had to find this other guitar player, which turned out to be Clay. But Scott couldn't do it. He was busy doing another gig. He got into production of live shows. So then it just so happened we auditioned other people, and we auditioned Clay, but we kind of knew ahead of time that it was going to be him because I saw him play, and I was like, he's awesome. And then Clay had his friend Corbett, who was in his band, and he was the drummer, and I was like, it's perfect. So we just put it together and did it, and we came off of my solo success right into releasing that. It was a whole new world, as they say, but it did very well, and we thought it was going to be one record, and it led to a deal in Nashville, and now we're back into a new deal and a new incarnation of the Hammers. Just we're older, wiser, and all that kind of stuff. We thought by this time, like, it'd be out of our system. You think you're not a spring chicken. It's got like, we're gonna get sick of this, right? But it's funny. We all do our solo things, and we're in so many different projects, and we love those. But when you get on stage with the Hammers, it's a thing. Like, this band is bigger, fatter, louder than any other sound out there. There's just a thing, and I'm not saying we're, the Eagles or something like that, but like, when they get together, when you see Joe Walsh, it's one thing. When you see Don Henley, it's another. But when you see them all together, it's something, and we're not nothing. You know what I mean? We're just a bunch of guys with guitars. But when you put us together, there's something there, and we recognize that too, and that's what keeps it fresh, I guess. We fight.
Well, you three have unmistakable chemistry. Yeah. Seeing you guys on stage, even when you're just hosting events, even when you're hosting events, like the chemistry between you three is unmistakable, and it's like watching you three perform is like a real treat for everyone watching.
It's like a train wreck that's in tune.
Like, an in-tuned train wreck.
It's really great because, like, even musically, like, think of the basic strip down of the whole thing. I'm country, so I'm like Marie, and Clay's rock, he's Donnie, and then Chris, he's like the blues guy, right? But Chris is, it's funny because Clay and I are the guitar players, and Chris is the bass player, but Chris is the best guitar player in the band. I'm not kidding. Like,
really,
if you need something done in the studio, like, he's the guy. He's a grown-up guitar player. He's the best musician in the band. Steve is our drummer out of Winnipeg, and Steve played with Doc Walker for years. He played with me for years, and he's kind kind of a hired hand, but he's not. He's now part of what we do, and we can't do a show without him. You know what I mean? Like he's in our DNA now. So it's we're pretty solid. We're in a really great, enjoyable place musically. We're not scared to try anything. You know, like not that you should be. It's music. I mean, it's not brain surgery. But I always hear this, like, I'm more fearless in my music. Like, oh, shut up. Just, you're making up stuff that rhymes. I mean, that's how I feel. But what I mean by that is, like, you swing and you miss sometimes. And we've had lots of misses, and we're still alive. It ain't no big deal. And I'd say that to younger artists, too. Don't be afraid to fall flat on your face. I had a music teacher when I was younger, and she said, if you're going to make a mistake, make it a loud one. Like, I want to hear some gusto behind what you're doing. Don't be lukewarm. Like, let's give her. And that's what we've done. And we make a big mistake. Well, we make a big mistake.
I think it's really cool how fondly you speak. Like, this is not a visual podcast, sorry everybody else, but when you're talking about the Roadhammers, it's three people who've had really incredible solo careers, and you've come back together, and you're just like, this is the moment. This is what we love. We know this is where, the three of us are so good together, and the people we have around us are so good together. It's really cool because, like I said, you had a little bit of a solo career, and it did all right. So, and it does all right. So it's really cool that you have the Roadhammers, and it's such a amazing thing for you. It's just nice to hear you talk about that too. I picture being
Garth in Wayne's World. Thanks. I like to play. No, it's well, I don't know. We're just a bunch of goofs with guitars. I mean, don't let any artists get on here and be too heavy and introspective and all this stuff. I mean, Chris Stapleton maybe be able to do that, but I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, I've done this since I was 16, man. And like, when you see an artist at a festival or something and they walk in, they got handlers and don't look at them, don't bother them, and they, all this kind of crap. It's just they're going through a selfish phase, which I think everybody has to go through, because I did, and everybody in the band has, and we all do, where you start to think your own hype. But at the end of the day, like, we've done festivals with everybody all over the world, from China, Australia, Germany. I played in Afghanistan for the troops. Like, we've done it all. And we've done shows. We just did one a couple years ago, and Tim McGraw's there. And like, Tim McGraw, he's an icon, right? Like, it doesn't get bigger. And he's jogging around backstage. He puts on a ball cap and sunglasses. He jogs around the back roads of this festival. And then he's in there and he's helping the people with the food line. He's like, the lady had to lift a tray off this chicken thing, and I see him helping her. He's like, oh yeah, he's got a sweatshirt on, and we're putting on shows. We're entertaining. We're having fun. Ain't nobody in this world better or bigger than anybody else, and that's proven by a guy like Tim McGraw, who literally flew in on a private jet that afternoon. He's got a bus waiting for him. He's got all the trappings of the world, but he's still like, hey, let me help you with this. Let me do the. And he doesn't put on any airs, because he knows he's an entertainer, and just like a welder, we're there to do a job, and it just happens to be a really fun job.
That's really fair.
Yeah,
That's really cool, though, actually.
He's a real dude. He's a real down-to-earth guy, and there's a lot of them. And even the ones who are maybe got their head in the clouds a little bit at a certain time, you can't really fault them for that, because if you're a new young artist and you're like Justin Bieber, like, he's got that song where I forget what it's called, but it's like, what would you have done if you were me, or something? I forget those lines where he's talking about
lonely
off the rails. Well, come on, he was just a kid, and he's given a private jet and endless money, and everybody says you're the best and brightest and smartest thing ever, and you start to believe it.
What are you supposed to think? Yeah.
But he came around, and we all do that.
Justin Bieber. Poor guy.
Neebs, man.
Hope he's doing okay now.
So a little earlier, you mentioned Doc Walker.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: Jenna is a huge fan of Doc Walker, and
always have been.
And she noticed that you were listed as a writer on Rocket Girl.
Yeah. Okay. So I had interviewed Chris from Doc Walker back in October, and first of all, it was hilarious because, like, Doc Walker, Jason McCoy, I don't know if you know him either, but like, my parents, I grew up on country music too. Like, that's all we listened to. We had one radio station for the longest time, and it was just a country station, so that's all I grew up on as well. And so when I get to interview Chris from Doc Walker, I'm like, wow, and this is kind of how I feel today too. I'm like, how do you ask questions of people who are interviewed all the time? It's been like hundreds of times, and you don't want to just ask the same questions. So right away I was like, okay, listen, this is like my most exciting interview of the year. You are fundamental to my childhood, like the soundtrack to growing up for me. Because I grew up in the middle of nowhere too, until I moved to Kitchener, obviously. I have to ask the questions that I'm not going to write about. So I asked him about Rocket Girl. I'm like, what? Did you think this song was going to be huge? And he's like, well, here's the thing. And my brother and I fought about what Rocket Girl's about so much. It was a screaming match that he had to settle that argument for us as well, which we were both wrong, and that's a side thing. But he's like, listen, that actually wasn't meant for Doc Walker. And I was like, what? He had said you and the co-writer, I forget who it was.
Denny Carr.
Yeah. So he said, Jason McCoy calls me up one day and is like, I have this song and it's kind of cool, but it's not what I want to put, it doesn't make sense for my record.
Yeah.
And they never meant for it to be a hit either. So Rocket Girl, what was that song for you? And like,
yeah, I didn't call Chris, like in a way I did, but so what, we had the same manager, and I come off Dixieland, and Dixieland was more of a pop song, which is 25 years old this month, by the way. So I'm feeling really old. But anyway, I came off that, which was more of that pop thing I was telling you about, and then was I going to go more traditional, which was honky tonk sonatas at the time. And so I just recorded honky tonk sonatas, which had like Don't Look Away and Whisper and Kind of Like It's Love and stuff. So I was cutting all these Jim Lauderdale type songs, which I loved. But Rocket Girl didn't fit into the ilk of that. So I finished that record, and I had Rocket Girl because Denny Carr and I wrote Dixieland, I Feel Sin Coming On. I'm a Road Hammer. He's one of my favorite co-writers. And we had this song, Rocket Girl. And it came off of him talking about this girl in West Virginia. And he was talking, I can't forget her name, but we kind of wrote the whole song about her. Just kind of, she always had these big stories, right? And everybody knew they weren't real, but everybody loved them, right? And then I had this song, and I sent it to my manager, Ron. I was like, I don't know what to do with this song, but it's really great. And he said, well, I just started working with this band, Doc Walker, and we need some stuff for the first record. So he said, do you mind if I send it? And so he did, and that's how it happened. But it was just a crappy little, like, it was before phones, right? Like cell phones. I mean, I had a cell phone, but it was in a bag and had a big antenna. I made a little cassette recording just on this little thing I used for, writing. It's really awful. And Chris said he loved it the first time he heard it, him and Dave.
Yeah.
And, when you talk Doc, I mean, Chris is always in the interviews. Dave's kind of like Silent Bob or Silent J or whatever. But, like, they're both musical powerhouses as far as knowing their music history. And so they were big students of listening to country radio. So the fact that they could pick up that was a really cool melody and all that stuff really, really meant a lot that they'd want to cut it. And it was my first outside cut, I guess you'd say, like that somebody else cut.
Cool.
And it means a lot. Like, I mean, I can still play that song anywhere, and it gets a huge reaction. So they really gave it a life beyond even, I thought it was a cool song, but they really made it a hit.
Yeah. Even this past November, I was at an event during the CCMAs, and there was lots of people there. And people are, the artists they get a couple songs and they're each playing. It's from Sakamoto Talent Agency. So everybody's chatting, and people are just excited to see each other, right? Because it's been so long anyways. And then all of a sudden they play the first little bit, and the whole room is just like, and all of a sudden everybody's eyes are, and I was like, I watched that because I knew they were going on, obviously. And I'm like watching the eyes just turn, and it was so cool.
Like, cool. That's amazing that I got to be part of that song. Like, that's great and all that, but it's amazing how some songs, like, for instance, we were in Mexico on a holiday with a family, and they had this bus that takes you around to different areas, and you hop on it at night, and it'll take you to the different parts of the resort and stuff. All these drunk guys get on the bus, and they're just having fun, but all of a sudden they just start singing, just a small town girl living in a lonely world. And like, the bus ride was forever, and it's like they know every note. But like, there's certain songs, you know what I mean? There's certain songs. That one wasn't even out when those guys were born, I guarantee you. And Rocket Girl, probably when you were like just a kid, like, and little kid, just to be part of those songs is amazing. But it's amazing that power of music. Like, that's when I was going on about artists getting too heady about themselves. Like, that's just everybody can hate me for that. But you just make up stuff that rhymes. But that thing that gets created, that's the magic. Like, there is something about it. There's songs that just rhyme, and there's songs that you're just trying to get on the radio, and then there's other songs that have a thing. I think everybody's looking for that thing. There's magic songs out there, like Tennessee Whiskey. as opposed to other stuff.
Oh, so good.
Totally. It's just so cool, yeah. So now that I've just, I'm a little fangirl, and that's I'm okay with that.
That's why we're here. But that's why we're here, because we all love music and what it does.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I have 2 memories of you when I was younger. My dad used to be a millwright, and he would work at the Molson plant. And my dad has all of your CDs from back in the day. He got them all. And
my dad has all your 8 tracks.
So he comes home.
Jenna's probably like, what's an 8-track?
No, I'm not that. I know what it is. However, I was 2 years old when...
She just Googled it.
Whatever. So my dad comes home he goes up to Barrie to work at the Molson plant because millwrighting, and when they were shutting it down, and he comes home, and we're all, waiting for dad to come home, get together for dinner and whatever, and he goes, "You know who I saw today? You'll never believe who I saw today." And he's all excited. I'm like, "Who?" And he goes, "Jason McCoy." And I was like, we're all young, so now that I know you worked there, that probably makes sense. But the funnier memory I have of you is I was in the 3rd grade going to medieval times on a school trip, and my friggin' mom is one of the chaperones, and her and her little bestie with my friend's mom, we're all waiting in the en route line in I don't know where, Toronto or somewhere, and we're standing behind you and that's the only reason I know that, is because they're standing there, and my mom and her friend are looking at me, and my little friend, her name's also Jenna, they're like, "That's Jason McCoy behind us." And I'm like, "Why don't you say hi?" Like, that's cool. Why don't you just say hi? I'm sure you'd say hi back. And they're like, "This is so cool." And I'm like, you know what would be cooler? If you just like, "Hey, I'm a fan." I'm sure he'd say hi. The whole time they're standing there like, "This is so..." We get on the bus, and they're like, "Jason McCoy was in there." And I'm like, and they didn't say hi. How stupid. It's the funniest thing.
Well, that's a little odd.
Forever
now.
Ago.
Awkward. No, you didn't say hi. That's, what was I,
No
grumpy?
kidding. No. So funny.
It's always funny, eh? It's like, you know what? I've had lots of those stories on the other end too. Living in Nashville, it's kind of like, it's a pretty funny place to live because a lot of artists are there, right? But most of the time when people come to see artists in Nashville, they're not there because they're always out busy touring and making money. Right? Yeah. So I had a friend come down, and this happened twice with different artists. But I had a friend come down, and she wanted to see Keith Urban. She's a huge fan. They were there for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, I said, I always going on about, well, he goes to Copper Kettle, this little cafeteria lunch thing all the time, because I know he does. I've seen him there. But I've only seen him there like a couple of years ago. And anyway, we go down there the last day she's there. It was that afternoon. Then they were going to start driving home. And I said, "Oh, we'll go see Keith for lunch." Ha, ha, ha. And you get your little cafeteria tray, and you go up and you get your stuff, and he was behind her. She was behind me, and he was behind her. I said, "Oh, your boyfriend's right behind you." And he turns around, looks him right in the face, and looks back at me and go, "Huh? Who? What do you mean?" It was out of context. He's wearing sunglasses and a do-rag, and he's kind of being dude, right? I go, "Keith Urban, he's right behind you." And so I don't know him. I kind of met him once, right? But I just kind of introduced her and said, "Hey, Keith, we're from Canada, and I live here," and she's a big fan. And he was really nice. Got a picture, but that's Nashville. Same thing happened with my wife. She's a huge Bon Jovi fan, and so we were at a show one night, and at the Exit Inn, and there was an artist playing that I knew Bon Jovi wrote with a lot. This guy Paul Thorne. So we're up there getting drinks at the lineup, right? And there's Bon Jovi getting drinks in the lineup. He's behind my wife, and I said, "Oh, your boyfriend John's here." Same line, right? And she turns around, same thing, looked him right in the face, and then turns around and said, "What are you talking about?" He says, John Bon Jovi right behind you. And we didn't get to meet him. She was too freaked out. But
isn't that funny?
That's Nashville. And I think you kind of feel like a circus animal or a zoo animal if people don't say hi, right? So that's what I get back to those, like, just real people, right? Like Keith Urban. Yeah. He's gone through his phases and stuff, but he's a regular dude. Through radio, I got to do a Zoom interview with him just like this, and he's all that. Like, he's just he likes to play guitar. Like, I mean, he's
a cool guy. Yeah,
he'd be doing. It's like a Luke Combs song. Sorry, I remember there's 2 Lukes. There's Luke Bryan and Luke Combs, and the one whose name is Combs looks like he doesn't. Anyway, but that song, look, I'd be doing this if I wasn't doing this, right? That's Keith. He'd be playing guitar. if he was in a bar or he's on a big stage.
Yeah, it's cool. It's also, so there's like the other side to that too. Like, you feel like it's a little bit of a circus animal. People don't want to say hi, or like, what's going on? But it's also like, I remember like when we were younger and Justin Bieber would be in town, it's like, people were either like screaming and running for him. It's like, or you stay back because you're like, I don't want to freak them. I don't want to, like, you know, you're just going about your day. You don't want to go and be like, oh my God, I'm a huge fan. And some people really appreciate that. And others are just like, why are you don't bother me. I'm trying to just have a day to myself, you know? And it's funny.
Yeah, but if you're, okay, but put it this way. Like, if you're the Beatles or Justin Bieber and like you got a security issue of 10,000 people all trying to crush you to touch you, that's a little different than being in the lineup at Walmart. Yeah. If you're in the lineup at Walmart, think of the real estate agents in our area. They got their faces all over these signs and stuff. And you see that person, right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to sell my house. Or you sold my friend's house, you know? Like, what's wrong with turning around and going, hey, you're so-and-so, right? Yeah, you sold my friend's house on the whatever thing. And they really had a great experience. And be like, oh, that's not like... That's called being human, right? You're talking. And it'd be like, hey, just like you said, hey, I was at your show, or I remember my dad worked at Molson and he came home and there's this great story. Like, that's awesome. I love to hear that. It's just great. Yeah. Like, sometime I'll run into somebody, maybe I'll run into your cousin and go, hey, Jenna, I'll see you at the store. And I'll be like, hey, I ran into your cousin. What's the difference? I've been on videos and that other person's been on real estate signs. Who cares? It's good to chat. That's what we're built to be. We're built to be social. That's why we're doing this. Here's
the thing. Yeah. So I know my mom couldn't say hi to you at the en route on the way to Medieval Times. But I did text her this morning and be like, I'm talking to Jason McCoy today. And she literally said, holy fuck, you are so lucky. Because she's such a huge fan.
But she didn't say hi to me. I don't even want to talk to her. There's the hand, okay? So
her name's Wanda. Say bye, Wanda.
Yeah, bye, Wanda. Cut out. No, wait. Well, that's great. We'll say, where is Wanda right now? She's in
Teeswater, Ontario.
Teeswater, right there, downtown by the Auto Mall. Anyway, say hi to Wanda for me, and next time that she sees me, like, let's talk. And
she would love that. No.
Well, Jason, we're coming up to the end here. Unfortunately, I feel like we could talk all day long.
I have so many more questions.
Yeah, me too. But that's okay. We'll do part 2 next year. What do you have coming up that we can look forward to?
Well, the Hammers, it's kind of been like a stripped gear trying to get into the studio and record and all that stuff with COVID. Clay's really busy with his solo stuff right now. So as we come out of all that restriction stuff, it's just finding time to hunker down and get on it, and which we're going to do. And so probably in the new year, new stuff. Same thing for me. I've been doing this radio thing. I'm getting a little lazy, like as far as getting in the studio and recording solo stuff. But through all this recording writing for the Hammer stuff, I got all these solo songs. So I want to get on that and record. And there's probably going to be a whole pile of stuff coming out very soon here in the next 6 to 12 months. But really, it's all about the summer dates and not being allowed to tour for so long. Now we're getting all these shows and getting ready to get back at it, and pretty pumped about that. So that's the focus. We festivals, fairs, clubs, it doesn't matter. It's just any place, anytime. We're all eager, isn't I don't know the word. We're all pumped. We're very excited. We're over the top. It's like a dog when they see another dog. You can't wait to get out and wag your tail and play some music. So we're ready to go to the dog park.
Oh, right with you there.
Seriously.
And we'll see you there at the CMAOs too, because you're hosting this year again, right?
Yeah. I'm like the disease that won't go, or the rash that won't go away, right? Like, holy smokes. But co-hosting with Robin Onlini, and I had a few meetings with her on Zoom about some ideas and things. She's like,
cool.
She's a real star. Like I mean by that is she's unique. She's interesting. She carries herself so well, and she puts in all that hard work that you don't see. She is a very, very hard worker, and she's the real deal. So it's whipping me into shape. I got to keep up to her.
That's funny.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there for sure. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time.
And thanks for saying hi to
Wanda. Thank you. A lot of fun. We'll say hi to Wanda. Yep, that's right. We'll meet Wanda soon.
Thanks so much for joining us on The Porch with Front Porch Music. I love talking to artists and digging deep into the world of Canadian country music, and I'm so excited you joined. If you liked this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. That's the easiest way for you to support this show. You may even get a shout out. So we'll see you in a couple weeks next time on The Porch. On The Porch with Front Porch Music is hosted by me, Logan Miller, and Jenna Weishar. The theme song was written, produced, and performed by Owen Riegling.